Welcome to the show, everybody. This is the Farzi Show, presented by MyBookie, MyBookie.ag. It's wonderful to have you along for the ride. Nick Sirianni has to call plays. That's from yesterday to today. That's what it's come down to. I'll play the cut again for those that didn't hear it. I ran on yesterday's show with Nick Sirianni after the game against the Bills, where he came out and he basically said that he had to hold Kevin Patullo's hand. It was as close to diming somebody out, throwing somebody under the bus as a head coach would in Nick Sirianni's situation, where everyone looks at it and says, well, Kevin Patullo's your boy. And I've said all along that they're not going to make a change in play calling to Scott Loeffler or Jeff Stoutland even, you know. They weren't going to make that. They weren't going to bring in anybody else from outside the organization. They weren't going to go get Frank Reich to come in and call plays or even be a offensive a passing game coordinator. They weren't going to do that. The only person that had a chance at saving the Philadelphia Eagles offense from a play calling perspective was Nick Sirianni. So that's why when we go into that Chargers game and we talk about him taking over more responsibility, as we have talked about since then, that apparently didn't work. Hey, worked great against the Raiders. Congratulations. Worked okay against the Commanders. Yippity-doo. Another second half performance where you don't have 20 yards gained. You don't have a completion in the second half. Yeah, Nick Sirianni needs to do even more. And as I am campaigning for him to take over more responsibility in play calling, and even if it's just the second half, like, fine, do your game plan, script your first 15, and then go from there. And anything that's improv, I'll gladly go to Nick Sirianni, because after watching Jalen Hurts on his throws, his dropbacks even, passing attempts, not even throwing the football, but just where clearly the Eagles wanted to throw the ball, 8 of them in the second half against the Bills, not one really bore any real opportunity for this Eagles offense. The bare minimum. It was as much of an extension of the run game as it could have been. It was as much as playing scared as anything. And that was my big gripe yesterday, that the Eagles played scared. They played not to lose. And they played extremely timid. And more so than just playing that way, they called that kind of game. There's only one thing the Eagles can do. Now, they got one game left in the regular season. There's conversation about not playing starters, which to me is bonkers. There is no better example of putting your players in a better position to win football games than that position being at home. Have them at home. That's a pretty good position to be in, wouldn't you say? And now we're even having the conversation about not having starters aren't going to play. Really? And, you know, I can't even use my old argument of, well, the offense has been struggling, so you should get as many reps as possible to have the offense go out there and have – no, the offense isn't going to be cured in one game, but here's one thing that could happen. Nick Sirianni could get that feel for play calling a little bit more than he has had throughout this season, to which he hasn't called plays. And maybe you don't have that experience where he's watching a game in the fourth quarter and he's looking at Kevin Patullo's play call going, I don't know about that. As he pointed out so eloquently after this game against the Bills. Now, to go back to it, as I campaigned for Nick Sirianni to take more responsibility, I didn't see it yesterday, but oh my goodness gracious. Or I saw it after the show yesterday. Nick Sirianni walking off the field. John Clark got the footage. But it's Nick Sirianni walking off the field at Orchard Park, and he's doing his typical Nick Sirianni, you know, not so hostile, gloating over the victory. And as he is walking up, he passes A.J. Brown, and he looks at A.J. Brown, and Nick Sirianni's all jazzed up, all excited, and A.J. Brown just glare. The word to use here that is the best way to describe it is as Nick Sirianni is gloating, hooting, hollering, excited, all that, pots and pans up the tunnel, A.J. Brown just glares at him. Nick Sirianni is looking back at him. They're locked eye to eye. And at the very end of it, A.J. Brown cracks the smallest smile, which some might think, oh, they're just playing. But I think the first 2 seconds of that stare down are how A.J. Brown really feels. Because there's nobody, and A.J. Brown is certainly one of them. There is nobody on that offense that is walking off the field feeling like they can take credit for that victory. Especially when you're talking about the fact that you couldn't even gain 20 yards. Excuse me, 18 yards. It's like disputed. I've seen some people say 16, 17. I did the math. 16 yards is what the offense did in the second half. 1 first down. And you're going to be walking off the field with the classic comparison of doing nothing on the group project but still getting an A. You know what I mean? So AJ kind of glares back at Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni stares back, I'll say. And then Nick Sirianni says, yeah, I love this stuff. And then walks into the Eagles locker room. I'm all for emotion. And hey, look, I can't tell you firsthand, but watching as many games as I have throughout my life and talking to so many professional athletes and coaches throughout my life, I can't tell you what it's like to win at the NFL level, but I can tell you I know it's hard. But once you've been at that level for 5 years, as Nick Sirianni has, once you've been to 2 Super Bowls and won a Super Bowl, a win against the Buffalo Bills in Week 17, where your offense mustered, not even including special teams, 7 points, 6 points, 1 touchdown. Let's go with that. That's not exactly the game I'm going to be walking off the field, pounding my chest, hooting and hollering. And A.J. Brown, it's interesting. Hard Knocks highlighted this because a lot of times people in my position will take heat. And Seth Joyner talks about this as well. He'll take heat for, hey, the Eagles won. Everybody be happy. Or we'll see in the comment section after the game, like we'll be harping on the Philadelphia Eagle offense being terrible against the Bills. And people are like, hey, they won the game, right? I'm like, what game? Like, we're not playing the same game here. Everything's fine because they won with that opinion. But in terms of determining whether or not this is a true Super Bowl contender, it is what we're doing after every win. We're not watching the same thing. All right. And we're certainly not watching it in the same way. So you look at a game like that. And on Hard Knocks, I heard Lane Johnson talk about wins that feel like losses. And he wasn't talking about it from the perspective of fans or media. He was talking about it from the perspective of a player. Hey, look, we've all played sports. It doesn't change all that much, the feeling, when you're a kid versus you're a high school kid, college kid, professional athlete. Everyone looks around the room and goes, okay, that was a lucky one. Okay, we were lucky to win that one. I'm glad we won, but we got some things to work on. Like, no NFL team after a win goes, yeah, we're perfect. Like, that doesn't happen. I mean, even Nick Sirianni, Mr. Pound the Chest, Mr. Pots and Pans, he's not looking at anything as if it's a perfect game. He's not thinking the NFL is a perfect game. Okay, hey, you know what? And I'll give you being happy about a win on that walk from the field to the locker room. But the amount of gloating that happened there is it. If that's what you need to keep fanning the flame of your passion for this game, then I fine. Then he's even more emotional and more excitable than I even imagined. But that to me was all about the group project energy of doing nothing and still getting an A. And A.J. Brown's glare back reminded me of Lane Johnson talking about how wins feel like losses sometimes. And as I like to say, a moral loss. No such thing as moral victories. Well, there's certainly such things as moral losses. And look, it was a road win. It was a road win against the last tough opponent you're going to face. And don't get me wrong, the Commanders, with Josh Johnson, I guess, are going to come out pissed off and, wanting to throw hands based on the 2-point conversion the Eagles attempted in their last meeting, and I get that to a degree. But this offense has way too many things to work on. And if it wasn't for the idea that Nick Sirianni would be taking over more responsibility as a play caller, again, even in the second half or even in the fourth quarter as the end-all be-all, even if he's not doing that, it's still they still need work. And I know they're not going to solve all their problems, but if Nick Sirianni does take on more responsibility, I'd love for Jalen to hear him a little bit more. I'd love for that communication to get worked on a little bit more than what we have seen to this point this season. All this comes up, by the way, because Nick Sirianni talked about playing the starters versus not playing the starters. And there are two questions in the early goings of the press conference about, yes, this is Nick Sirianni now, yesterday speaking. There were two questions early on in the press conference about whether or not he was going to play the starters. And each one was a roundabout way of saying, I'm not going to tell you. So finally, and credit to Zach Berman of The Athletic, who phrased this beautifully. Basically, why wouldn't you play the starters? Like, everyone knows why you would play. You got the 2 seed up for grabs. The end of discussion. But this was the way Nick answered Zach's question about potentially not playing the start. Hey, why wouldn't you if the 2 seed is right there for the taking?
But you are thinking, hey, can I put ourselves in the best position seeding wise, but while also you're thinking to yourself how important, buys are and creating them if you don't earn the right for the first round bye. So those are all things you got to think through and go through, because I think a lot of guys would say last year that, that was a big deal of being able to have the bye last year, a built-in bye last year to set us up for what we ultimately did last year.
Jalen Hurts was still coming off the concussion last year. So last year is a terrible example. Last year was Tanner time for those that celebrate. The year before that, it was Hurts to Mariota in the game. So I'm not exactly getting the perfect picture here of getting that bye. He did talk earlier in that answer about the importance of getting a bye week and do you want to create that? No. Now, when he says a bye week, he doesn't mean like obviously a real bye week. He means like resting the starters. No, man. No. And the number one reason why has more so to do with this. Now, this is Nick Sirianni after the Bills game talking about what the problem was in the second half.
I think it's multiple things. Obviously this has happened to us before, this season. We have to do a better job of helping them be in positions to succeed. I got to help. I put it on myself. I got to help, with some things there, with some things that I know we want to get called. Kevin did a good job in that first half, but I got to help in that second half a little bit, getting some things that we want to get called there.
Let's stop that for a second. Imagine if Nick Sirianni said that about anybody else. Imagine if he said that about Jalen. Jalen did a good job in the first half. In the second half, I need to help more. Look, Nick Sirianni is doing the right thing. Nick Sirianni is trying to take it on the chin. He's trying to take full responsibility. It's my job, blah, 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 blah. Okay, everyone knows the spiel. But imagine if he said that about Jalen Hurts. Imagine if he said that about A.J. Brown. Imagine if he said that about Devontae. It would be an uproar. Oh, how would you? He's throwing those guys under the bus. No, you know what he's doing there? And for whatever reason, this has not gotten more legs. Nick Sirianni is throwing Kevin Patullo under the bus. He did a good job in that first half. The second half, yeah, because he was so terrible at his job, I should have been helpful there. Okay, so let's see where we're going with this. Nick Sirianni takes over more responsibility 3 games ago. Now 4 games ago. All right, the offense looks different. Now, the turnovers were terrible against the Chargers, but from a schematic standpoint, it looked different. Then you see them kicking into high gear as they should against a team like the Raiders. Then they put up more points there with 29 points there against the Commanders. Then they go into Buffalo. And still in the second half, you have the same problems that you had against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where you can't get over 20 yards in a half. You can't get a completion in a half. You hit a wall again. This is after Nick Sirianni's gotten more involved. And I'm supposed to be looking at Kevin Patullo like other teams around the league are taking him serious as a head coaching candidate. That's hilarious. I'm rooting for it, but I ain't betting on it. Nick, the only option now at this point, with one game left in your regular season, that matters, by the way. The opportunity to get the number 2 seed is right there for the taking. You win, Bears lose, you're the number 2 seed. Now, if the Bears are getting blown out by the Lions, who I have zero doubt that Dan Campbell is going to be out for blood in that game, so there's a chance the Lions actually get one win. You know, the chance the Lions actually get the victory there. If the Lions are up, 40-0 or something like that in the third quarter, then yeah, sure, go ahead and pull Jalen Hurts if you're winning your game, obviously. If you're up. But this is such an easy call. Do you have things to work on as an offense? Yes. Might you be changing things as an offensive play caller? Yes. Is there a huge carrot being dangled out in front of you and a huge reward of moving up a seed in the postseason? Yes. Then what are we talking about? How is this even look, and the other sad part about it is I don't think this is all gamesmanship. I don't think Nick Sirianni is just saying this, to keep the Commanders off guard or even make the Bears relax in a game. I think he's saying this because they're truly debating whether or not they should play their starters in a game. They should obviously play their starters. I know I used this yesterday, but I'll use it again. It making no sense. So for me, I think that you have all three things lined up to play starters in this football game because you should. You have to. And there's other instances. If I didn't think the Eagles would make any change in play caller, if obviously there wasn't even a 2 seed to go for, there have been moments where I've looked at the Philadelphia Eagles at the end of a season and be like, yeah, don't rest starters. I know you have, even if you had things locked up in your playoff seeding, there's been instances where I've looked at it and be like, no. You guys got to play. You guys have been cheeks. I think it was even the Super Bowl season of 2017 and 2018 where Nate Sudfeld took the majority of the snaps because the Eagles offense had hit a little bit of a wall with Nick Foles. Very little bit of a wall, but hit a wall. No, this offense needs as much work as possible. Give him a series. Give him 2 series, whatever it was. And Nick Foles played a very little bit before Nate Sudfeld came in. It was a Sudfeld show. And that's where all those people were like, Nate Sudfeld should start in the playoffs. Those are the same people talking about Tanner McKee throughout this season. Tanner McKee should start. Okay, that's adorable. Enjoy learning the game of football. This is fun. It's going to be fun for you. But I go back to that year of 2017 and think about it. Yeah, they needed to play. They played a little bit. They got right in the playoffs. I'm not saying it was because of those couple of snaps there against the Cowboys, which ended up being a 6-0 Cowboys win, if I remember correctly. But that's what I looked to. I looked at games like that where you needed to get right. The 2010 season, Joe Webb game, all that with Mike Vick. They needed to get right at the end of that season. Said they didn't play. Not saying that's why they lost to the Green Bay Packers, but hey, there's also another part of it is when you're in the position where it's do or die, when you're in the position of make or break, in any walk of life you've been in, hasn't it always been better to know you did everything you could to make sure that you were ready for that moment? Isn't that always the optimal thing? Like, I know I did everything I could to be ready for it and it just didn't happen. Or things maybe even outside your control affected it, but you did everything you possibly could have. That kind of helps. So I don't think it's a question. But I do seriously believe that the Eagles are considering not playing Jalen Hurts, not playing Saquon, resting guys, whatever. Hey, I'll tell you this much. At the right tackle position, I think Lane Johnson is rested. I think he'll be ready to go come playoff time. The Kobe Dean, you want to give him some more time? All right, fine. Go by all means. Go give him some more time. Guys like that are questionable. Guys like that have had injury issues. I mean, Jalen Carter, you can't tell me that he was banged up going into this game because, damn, he looked great in this game against the Bills consistently. And I even pointed out, what was it? 78% of the snaps he played in this game. That's pretty damn good. 76% of the snaps he played in this game. Yeah, it's pretty damn good. I'd say he's ready. And the other part about it is a nice regular week for the Eagles, which has been so wildly rare. Sleep in your own bed Sunday night. Wake up, full week of regular work. I was like, oh, wow, Nick Sirianni's talking to the media today. Wow, that's usually there's a downbeat there. They got some time. Not now, regular schedule. As far as watching the film in that second half in particular, well, first off, throughout the game, it was just a constant pressure from this Eagles defense. And even the last play, I went back and watched it. It was the 2-point conversion. It was Cooper to Gene getting pressure, then Jalen Phillips, then Jalen Carter. It was a wave pushing, smartly so, pushing Josh Allen to his non-throwing side and making him pull that football a little bit. Some people will look at that play and just say, "Oh, it was luck or Josh Allen choked or whatever." Well, yeah, there's a throw to be made. There's a play to be made. There's some element of truth to that. But the Eagles did not make that situation comfortable for him at all. That's a win for the defense. And it's another win for the defense in a game full of wins for the defense. And notice the only time the defense started to crack was when this Philadelphia Eagle offense was like, punt, and wait for it, one more, punt. It's the only time. When the Eagles offense was asked to be, when the Eagles defense was asked to be on the field twice as long as the Eagle offense. That's the only time the defense started to crack. And because the defense was the star of the show. When the defense was the star of the show, Nick Sirianni is trotting up the tunnel. All amped up and whatnot. You know, I used to work on this morning radio show on WIP with a very talented group of characters. Okay, very talented group of people, and a joke when I would fill in for whatever host was out. Someone would say, "Hey, love the show." I would always say, as a joke, "You're welcome," being that I had the least to do with any success of the show, and it was a joke that some people on the outside got and everyone on the inside got. It was, again, that same energy of the group project, showing up for the group project, doing nothing but getting an A, that kind of thing. That is what Nick Sirianni reminded me of. It was a joke, but except he was serious. That's what it reminded me of. That just popped in my head as I was talking about that last, about really praising Vic Fangio for all that he was able to do for this Eagles victory. Do look forward to hearing from him. Also about Jalix Hunt and how well he played. He was an animal. Jahad Campbell, pretty damn good, especially in coverage. Jalen Carter, as I said, the star of the show. Jordan Davis, I mean, it might not be the sexiest numbers in the world for Jordan Davis, but still a presence in the middle of that defensive line. It can't be all sexy numbers all the time for Jordan Davis. Cooper DeJean and Quenyon Mitchell. Quenyon Mitchell, going back and looking at it again, the pass interference call, like there's obviously contact, but if you're going to let one thing go, and this was my takeaway, which the film only confirmed, but if you're going to watch A.J. Brown get his hand held on a deep ball from Jalen Hurts, and you're not going to call that pass interference, then you can't call it pass interference on two guys that are kind of fighting going down the field. And if you're going to overturn a catch and call it a drop on Devontae Smith, then how do you miss the Shavers drop that was clearly a drop, more clearly a drop, and call that a catch? Now, part of that is on Nick Sirianni and company for not getting that, not throwing the flag, the challenge flag in time. And also credit to the Bills, who almost risked an interception in trying to get the next playoff so quickly so the Eagles couldn't challenge. But also in that moment, the Eagles defense comes up with that goal line stand. Zach Bond stops Josh Allen, reading that play phenomenally. And that's a tough play to make when you have such a mobile quarterback in Josh Allen. And Zach Bond just does not get fooled with anything and stays on him and makes the stop. But time and time again, the Eagles defense just had the answer. So that was the thing that really jumped out, obviously, throughout the entire game. Second half, there's just nothing going on. Like, no sense of urgency in the offense to try to put the game away. No sense of, let's make sure we get a long drive going here. Nothing. And no play to even take that shot in the fourth quarter. And I'm not saying a 50-yard bomb down the field, but no play to try to take even like a 10-yard pass, a 15-yard pass, trying to get first downs, trying to move the football. All it was, all right, we got 3 plays to burn as much clock as possible. And it was like from the 5-minute mark to the end of the game, that was the mentality. And seeing guys just blanketed and running the hitch routes, running the stop routes, like nothing. And although Nick Sirianni has done us the favor of identifying the biggest problem as Kevin Patullo, I mean, that doesn't mean that Nick is obviously exempt. It doesn't mean that Jalen's exempt. He has the ability to change things when they're called. For whatever reason, he did it. He can check to different plays within the package, within the personnel, and he didn't do that. If what's coming in on the sidelines is ass, you can change it up. And I would love for Jalen to do that. He's a franchise Super Bowl winning quarterback. He has the ability, the authority to change it. He's a 5-year starter, 5+ year starter in the NFL. He's got the ability to do that. He's worked with Jalen, or excuse me, he's worked with AJ. He's worked with Smitty. He's worked with Goddard. He's worked with Saquon Barkley. He's worked with this offensive line. Yeah, he could change it. This isn't like, everybody's new. What if the people aren't on the same page? No, everyone knows everybody. The only guy that's new in the position is that Kevin Patullo character. Him and Tyler Steen. Put those names together. That's fun. So, yeah, some of the responsibility does fall on Jalen's shoulders, but the biggest problem haunting this Philadelphia Eagles offense is Kevin Patullo, and your head coach just told you that. This isn't a detective story anymore. Okay? Unless it's Columbo, where you literally start at the end and you know who did it, and then it's just fun figuring it out. This part of it is not fun figuring it out. It should be figured out by now. It's week 18 now, for crying out loud. There's one more thing. For whatever reason, I don't have it in front of me. I thought I put it in my notes. I don't. What an idiot. No, just the request of Nick Sirianni going out there and taking over some more of that responsibility when it comes to play calling. Because it can't still be a problem 4 weeks after you took over more responsibility. I am gonna laugh my ass off. I'll say this much. Let's just say the Eagles don't make it back to the Super Bowl. Let's say they win 2 playoff games. Let's get crazy. And actually, no. Let's go with this other route. Let's say the offense still sucks, but the defense wins you a championship, and you win a Super Bowl 13-10. Okay, I'll laugh my ass off if Kevin Patullo gets a head coaching job after that. I will laugh my butt off. And then maybe after that, maybe Frank Reich comes in as an offensive coordinator. Frank Reich returns. Maybe. That's the way I see it. Hey, before I go any further, Tyrese Maxey, 76ers, he'll be back at it against the Memphis Grizzlies tonight at 8 o'clock. Sixers have had a horrible start to their road trip. For the second straight time against the Bulls, they collapsed in the fourth quarter. And then for the, what feels like every game, they had a collapse in the third quarter against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Not ideal. Joel Embiid played against the Bulls. Joel Embiid did not play against OKC. We'll see what the status is for tonight. Trendon Watford did say yesterday that he plans on coming back on this road trip, so he's got 3 more games to do that. We'll see if that's today. But yesterday, Keith Pompey caught up with Tyrese Maxey in Memphis and asked him about the potential of starting for the Eastern Conference All-Stars. He was second. Tyrese Maxey was second in the Eastern Conference and 4th overall in the first fan voting that was tallied. Maxey told Keith Pompey, I appreciate it. Hopefully it kind of shows us how we started out this season, winning some games. I don't know what seed we are right now, 7th, but trending in the right direction. We're on a little skid now, but at the beginning of the season, we did a good job of winning games, and I think that's a testimony to that. He says, for me personally, I think my talent level is shown in the NBA. I think it's growing, but for me, it's about winning games. I love Tyrese Maxey. Look, the season Tyrese Maxey is putting together right now for the Sixers, and I know the last handful of games aren't the best example of it, but the season he is having is the season that we've asked him to have. In the uncertainty of Joel Embiid, he is the 3rd leading scorer in the NBA. He's only behind the reigning MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and also some guy named Luka who plays in LA right now. When it comes to three-pointers made, he is tied for 4th in the NBA in three-pointers made per game. He is also leading the league in minutes played per game. Like, this is the guy you can rely on. What are we doing? If this guy's not an all-star, I'm going to lose my damn mind. I'm telling you that right now. More on that. Locked On 76ers, Keith Pompey and I later today. Hey, let me tell you about the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code FARS to get $20 off your first purchase on the Game Time app. Want to go to the game, the concert, the comedy show? Game Time app has you covered. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use promo code FARS to get $20 off your first purchase on the Game Time app. Let's get into the chat check. Sean Gillespie, good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Late start today. 2 reboots. I don't know. Pen 9617, hello. Jason A, hello. Good morning, Farsi and friends. Happy Central Time. Can't wait to catch the rest of the show when I land in beautiful Southwest Florida. There you go. Still think the Eagles are 1 and done in the playoffs. Yeah. By the way, how about the Rams losing last night to the Falcons? Matthew Stafford. That guy's not on your team. Why would you throw him the football? Anyway, also Bijan Robinson's rather good at football. Offense is trash. I concur. The offense is a poo show, a 17-yard 30 minutes in the second. Yep, not great. Stop hoping that the Giants will get back at us by hiring Kevin Patullo as their head coach. Yeah, he's not getting a head coaching job. Playing scared where we only have 13 points. Right? Homie is a clown. Well, that reminds me of a great old bit. Homie is a clown. Not Homie the clown. Homie is a clown. Hype like he just won the Super Bowl when we only put up 13 points. Nick is a clown, says Philly. Hello. Nick is a softie, says Island Ultra. He plays like a softie. Did anybody ask why we called a tush push on first down? Was that on goal line? Was that when they were backed up on their own goal line? I mean, I love that play on that first down. Everywhere else would be kind of dumb, but in that situation, don't just go forward, and it worked. Eagles didn't win, quotation marks. They were given the game by Buffalo. I mean, saying that, Sean, here's where I'll disagree. That negates how great the defense was. That's what I'll say. Even on the misplay there on the 2-point conversion. By the way, I totally forgot about that 10-second runoff. Because the official called the timeout, or not timeout, because the official ruled it a touchdown, they go to review, and there's an automatic 10-second runoff. So, like, if there was anything less than 10 seconds left on that clock, and it was ruled down, the Bills lose automatically. Now, that would have been a gift. But The NFL, hey, look, the NFL's got to change that. I know it benefited the Eagles, or would have benefited the Eagles. They still got a touchdown, but they wouldn't have had a chance at that tush push for the touchdown to set up the 2-point try to attempt to win the game in that moment. So imagine the Eagles or the Bills in the scenario. Imagine the roles reversed, and like Dallas Goedert is the one that's down at the 1-inch line, and then all of a sudden they got to run it off, and you don't even get that final play. Like, that's something that the NFL has to change in the last, 2 minutes of a game, about 10-second runoffs in that exact situation. Because, in essence, the referee could end the game. And also, you end the game doing what the officials are told to do, which is, if it's close, just call it a touchdown and we'll review it. Booth review. Or that might even be the what do they call that? Booth assistance review, where they just review it anyway. Be like, no, he's down at the 1. Or if they'll review it and see that he did cross the plane, they'll rule it a touchdown. Like, that's something the NFL has to change. Josh Allen, not that guy. I do agree. The Commanders are going to be trying with cheap shots. I agree. Nick is a clown. Okay. Gatekeeper, the Eagles are no good with extra time to game plan this year. They don't need the bye week. Fair. Philly, the games literally come on at the same time, and I could see if you knew the Lions already lost. You could, yeah, exactly. 16 yards in the second half. I know. Oh, John Cheeseborough. What's up, buddy? Just had to drop in and say good morning, Farsian Society. Hello, good morning. Nice to see you again. The issue is I don't see an in-house replacement to call plays. Maybe Scott Loeffler. We've talked about that name a lot. Nobody will get it. The only person that could do this is Nick Sirianni, because he's the only person that won't take the shine. Well, at least I thought. The only person that wouldn't take the shine necessarily off Kevin Matula is the only person that wouldn't take the responsibility. Or, I'm sorry, the praise for figuring it out. Sudfeld was definitely a thing. Laughed my ass off. Right? Nobody remembers that. But I remember, because I never forget. John, we need an offensive version of Vic Fangio. The question is, who is that? Did I just see Northwestern who's hiring Chip Kelly? Not that I'm campaigning for Chip Kelly. Northwestern's offensive coordinator. Okay, offensive coordinator. That's what it was. Chico, what's up, Chico? Money Fars, do you think Jalen is not seeing the field enough? He needs to be needs to be a gunslinger. I do not. Jalen Hurts is not a gunslinger. There's a lot of things he is. Gunslinger is not one of them. When he does go to gunslinger mode, that's where you get 20 turnovers in 24 games. I think that was the stretch he had, or maybe it was 24 turnovers in 25 games, something like that. Either way, it was terrible. I don't want gunslinger mode. I do want aggressive mode, and I know that's a very fine line, but I'd like to see a little bit more of that. But it's got to come from play calling. Like Jalen even said after the game that he just ran what was called. Well, Jalen, if you're going to have the responsibility and you're going to be granted the responsibility of being able to change plays, check out of plays, check to something else, you got to know that what's called is ass, and you got to make that change. I'm not saying you got to change everything. I'm not saying you got to go rogue like some people thought he did in the Rams game, which, by the way, the Rams right now, they play the Eagles in the playoffs. Right now. That's the way it goes in Philadelphia in the first round. But Jalen's look, I have told you guys throughout this season, Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback. I look at Jalen Hurts and I see an elite quarterback. I also see a guy trying to play a role in certain situations. But if I look at him as at anybody else in the history of the NFL, you a runner-up in the MVP award for the regular season, you go to a Super Bowl, You ball out in that Super Bowl. Lose, unfortunately, but you're still a conference champion at least. Then you go back to another Super Bowl 2 years later, and you win that Super Bowl. Oh, and you're the MVP of that Super Bowl? That sounds like a pretty elite quarterback to me. And how many touchdowns did he score throughout the course of his career? That seems like a pretty good guy to have on your team. Also, in his worst game last year, he had 3 touchdowns. And in his worst game this year, he was still in the red zone with a chance to win that game in overtime before, unfortunately, he pooed the bed and threw an interception with a really bad throw and a really bad decision. Like, he's a pretty elite quarterback. Because I look at him as an elite quarterback, I grade him as an elite quarterback. So, yeah, in my mind, a lot does go on his shoulders, especially when you got Tweedledee and Tweedledum on the sidelines. So if you're noticing, hey, my defense has been out here for a long time. Yeah, I understand you want to run the football. You want to milk clock. You want to make sure that they're not out there for 100 snaps and all that, your defense. But you know what else can help with that? 10-play, 7-minute drive, kind of thing. That can help with it too. Getting first downs, moving the football. Oh, wait, here's another one. Getting more points. And is it all on Jalen? No. But if you're Jalen Hurts and you've accomplished what you've accomplished at the NFL level, and you've had so many different play callers, and you're looking over at the sideline while you're getting the thing, you're like, wait, what? You want me to? It's 2nd and 13. You want me to run the ball? All right, guys. So the play call's ass. Here's what we're doing. Like, you got the authority to do that. I'd like to see more of it from Jalen. But gunslinger, no, Chico. AJ's smile definitely forced. Quick, you and I are on the same page. Tyler Steen he blocked someone? So it says Tyler Steen blocking that guy into Fred Johnson. So you're telling me he blocked someone? Tyler Dillard. Wow, Kid Ace. That's hilarious. Oh, thank you, Jason. Yeah, smash that like button, as they say. Jalen needs more Sprite. What's up, mullet? Jalen needs to call his own. Yeah, I wouldn't have minded a quarterback draw. Spreading the ball around, I'd like to see more. Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Sandman. Hello, I blame the offensive line for the bad play of the offense. When they block, the offense is unstoppable. When they don't, plays look bad. I mean, yeah, I thought for a long time, like maybe into the middle of the season, the offensive line was the biggest problem. But then when I hear from the head coach that he needed to hold the hand of his offensive coordinator, do I still have it? Oh, no, I didn't put it on this one. It's not on this computer. But yeah. Kevin did a good job in the first half. I need to do better in the second half. All right. Thanks everybody in the chat. You guys are great as per usual. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow for an all-new edition of this little program I like to do called The Farzy Show. I think today we'll hear from Nick Siri. I think today we hear from Vic Fangio and Kevin Patullo. Look forward to hearing what they have to say about that Bills game and going forward as well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. My name is Mark Farzetta. See you tomorrow.